Hello everyone. Yes, hello everyone. Very good morning to you all. And I'm Dr. Runali, your host for today. And our moderator for today's session will be Dr. John Roderick. So our topic for today's webinar. Yeah, hello sir. A very good morning to you.
John here. Yes. Good morning,
Yes.
Dr. Runali.
Yes, sir. So our topic for today's webinar is application of the keynote method in practice. And our expert speaker for today is Dr. Sujata Naik. She is a senior homeopathic practitioner and has been practicing in Mumbai extensively for the past 33 years across her 3 centers. She is also involved in several research projects. She is a speaker of international repute and also the author of 2 well-known books on health and wellness. So before we begin the webinar, a few things to take note of. I'll be keeping...
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Dr. Runali, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Just a moment. I am just muting all the participants so that we have a clear audio. Just a moment, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, right. So before we begin the session, let me just tell you a few things to take note of. I'll be keeping all the participants on the mute mode during the session so that we have a clear audibility of the speaker. So please do not unmute yourself during the session. And same goes for the videos. Please keep your videos off as well. The last 10 minutes of the session will be dedicated for the question and answer session. So if you have any queries, just raise your hand so that I can unmute you. And otherwise, you can also type into the chat box and we will answer your query. Okay, so we'll now begin the session. Dr. Sujata, am I clear?
Yes, yes, Dr. Runali, thank you very much. Is Dr. John on the line? Hello?
Yes.
Is Dr. John there?
Yes, ma'am. Just a moment. I'll just unmute Dr. John.
Please unmute Dr. John because
Yes,
he's the
yes,
moderator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, good morning, Dr. Runali.
Good.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Very
Yes,
clear.
yes, Dr. John. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Thank you,
Good
Dr.
morning.
Runali, for the kind introduction of Dr. Sujata. Dr. Sujata, good morning to you.
Good morning, Dr. John.
And good morning to all participants. A brief introduction about Dr. Sujata. A wonderful colleague. We have learned and grown in homeopathy together from the same medical college. I think from 1982, if I'm right, I think 1986 we passed together. And since then we have been journeying together. So today we have a wonderful speaker who's already on the international platform and she will be focusing on keynote. We'll keep very short so that we have a maximum time of 20 minutes for Sujata to talk. After 20 minutes, I will be asking some 5-10 minutes, some peculiar question relating to the topic. After the last 10 minutes, we'll be keeping it to all the participants to ask questions. Okay, over to you, Sujata.
Good morning, folks, and thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure to connect with you on this Semilivum group. And it is people like you who are taking this group forward and keeping it so active and proactive. So once again, thank you all Semilivum members and all the others who've joined the webinar today. I hope to give you something of your interest, something which I can contribute to your learning. And it's going to be a joint learning session. So as you learn, I learn with you as well. The reason why I chose this topic, one is, of course, we are all tired of Corona, COVID-19. So let's keep it aside for some time. There is so much more to homeopathy than that. Most important is that constitutional prescribing. Let me again emphasize that constitutional prescribing is the cornerstone of homeopathic prescription. And individualization is the key. No homeopathic prescription can be complete without individualization. Having said that, we often face hurdles when we are practicing. The classical method which we have learned and which is really the true method of homeopathic prescription sometimes does not come to our aid. Because patients, in several settings, when patients are not able to give us the kind of symptoms that we require, there is paucity of symptoms, there is sometimes difficulty in articulation, verbal communication is poor. In mass settings, when you're seeing several patients at the same time, or in very, very advanced cases where pathology is predominant and PQRS symptoms are not available. And this is what we have found, that there we have to find a wire media. We have to stick to fundamental homeopathic principles. We cannot compromise on those, because then it will become an isopathic system.
Yeah, excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt, but some people are not able to have audio on their side.
Okay, so what do I do? You tell me.
Just a moment, ma'am. Let me check.
Are you able to hear me?
I am able to hear you very clearly, ma'am.
I think they have to the audio thing they will have to cancel, so that then I'll be audible to them. Let me just check.
Yes, ma'am.
Because my audio is on, so they should be able to hear. Correct. Who is not able to hear me?
Ma'am, 3-4 participants are not able to hear. But I'm just wondering what is the issue, because the sound is clear.
They have to off it. Dr. Runali, tell them to off the audio inside. Their audio has to be off so that they can listen to Dr. Sujata very clearly.
Yeah, so the participants were not able to hear clearly on their end. Please check your audio settings.
Are you able to see me? Are the participants able to see me?
Yes, ma'am.
I can see you very clearly.
Yes, ma'am. Your audio and video is crystal clear, actually.
Okay. So can I take off from where I left? Can I restart?
Yes, ma'am. I think you should continue.
Right. So again, those who have missed out and those audios, those whose audios are now on, just a quick recap is that we often face hurdles in constitutional prescribing when there is paucity of PQRS symptoms. And this often happens in mass settings, in community settings, in patients where verbal articulation is poor, where it is difficult to elicit symptoms for whatever reasons. So in such conditions, we need to find the wire media where we are not compromising on basic homeopathic principles. At the same time, finding a protocol or a design study which will come to our aid during such situations. Now, this is something I will tell you in hindsight how it happened to us. We have been going to a rural homeopathic hospital in Maharashtra, in Konkan, for the past almost 8 years. And initially, as there was a lot of resistance to homeopathy because there's a completely allopathic hospital and a sector, we persisted. We said that we think we can make a difference to the villagers here. So they allowed us to treat skin cases. And they said you can treat skin diseases, but only those cases which are resistant to conventional treatment and not any other cases. So most of the dermatologists started referring tinea cases to us, the fungal infections which were resistant to conventional treatment. And that is how it started. And you will not believe it that people started coming to us and villagers were completely illiterate, not at all well-versed with homeopathy, had probably never heard of homeopathy before. They started flocking to our OPDs. And since they had already been declared resistant to conventional treatment, they were on no treatment. They just came to homeopathy because they said that there was nothing else left for them and they were referred by the dermatologist. Now what happened was that since they came with fungal infections, tinea, as we said, with this, at the end of a year, we found that we started prescribing because it was just a minute per person that we got. People would come in hundreds and 200s and literally no articulation, no verbal communication because they said, this is what we have and this is what you must treat. And we practically had no PQRS symptoms to work on. So what we did was we unwittingly started applying a method which we realized was actually the keynote method, where we took the general symptoms of the patient, of the particular problem or the pathology that they presented with, and just some differentiating rubric, which we could find some PQRS, something peculiar about the patient, which we found only on presentation. As the patient came in, maybe a gesture, maybe a thermal modality, maybe the way he expresses, maybe the way he sits, or his constitution and appearance. Virtually in 3 minutes, we arrived at one particular peculiar symptom. And that helped us to differentiate the constitutional or the indicated remedy at that time from the common group of remedies that presented. And we found at the end of 1 year, we realized that patients are coming back with fantastic amelioration. And the strike rate of amelioration was close to 85%. Now, mind you, here it was very significant because there is no therapeutic benefit from the consultation that patients were deriving. Unlike in our urban setups, where our consultations or the case taking would last for 1 whole hour, and the patients probably get better talking to the doctor. So the second prescription is always the most tricky one, when the patient who's so overwhelmed by the time that the doctor has given to him, he perhaps come with saying that, oh, I've never felt so good in my life, and I think your remedy is working wonders. We know how to take that with not pinch, but with loads of salt, because it is the next prescription, the second follow-up, which is going to be the one which is going to be the most tricky, and we'll know whether the patient is really ameliorated or he's saying things to please the doctor. Because as you know, in our OPD sometimes, and we know about it, that during the case taking, when the patient is unloading his problems, he's actually reliving the whole experience, whatever negative experiences that he's had in life, he's probably reliving those experiences and unloading himself in the process. So it's kind of a catharsis for the patient. So the first consultation, although it is for us, it is very important, because we get all the details of the patient that we need for constitutional prescribing for the patient. It might be a cathartic experience in many cases, and this becomes more pronounced as we go up the social ladder. So the more educated, the more intellectual the patient is, the more veneers there'll be on his personality, and the more difficult it will be for you to get to the constitution door, because he's going to tell you exactly what he thinks the doctor must know. Whereas in this rural setup, we found that the patient had nothing to gain, nothing to lose. All they said was, I'm better or not better. So this was a more accurate follow-up that we got. And we found that we are getting close to 85% strike rate in resistant cases of tinea. And we were wondering how this happened. And on hindsight, we found that the application, the keynote application that we were using in this kind of setup is doing wonders, because we are not giving specifics only, like Rustox for itching, arsenic album for burning, or sulfur for dry eruption. It's not only that. We are taking all the symptoms that the patient is presenting with and applying a differentiating rubric to get to the indicated remedy. Is my audio clear until now? I don't want to just go on rambling and people not understanding. Are you able to hear me?
It's clear, ma'am.
Dr. John, am I clear?
Yeah. Just a moment. There was one student who was calling up. Yeah.
Right.
So your part is over. Now the questions come about keynote. Can you explain?
Dr. John, can I finish my presentation first?
Okay. You have how many more minutes? 10 more minutes?
It, and then I will open to question. I'll be open to
any almost 10 more minutes too?
Yeah, I may need about 7 to 8 minutes. I'll get done in 7 to 8 minutes.
Fine. When it's done,
I need to just complete this. Yeah.
Perfect.
I just need to complete this. So on hindsight, we found that this is giving good results. So we came to, we made a research protocol, kind of an observation study on this, which we presented at several forums, and it has also received an award at the Liverpool conference. That apart, what is important here is that when you are practicing in a mass setting, for example, you're doing homeopathy camp. Now, nobody does homeopathy camps in general. We all know that we either have skin camps, or we have bronchial asthma camps, or allergy camps. Those days are gone when you would say, oh, it's a homeopathy camp, and people would just walk in for things. Now we are more specific, it's more scientific, it is more elaborate, and it is more specified. So if you're holding a skin camp, for example, so you'll have patients coming with skin diseases. Now we know very often that, for example, in a fungal rash, the symptoms that the patient will present with are more often very general. So they will have a circumscribed patch with a central scrotum or with a central clearing, and the edges will be erythematous, they will be red, there will be intense itching. Itching is mostly worse at night. Itching is worse generally by bathing or any kind of touch, changing clothes. These are very, very common symptoms that the patient will present with. And only getting better with emollients or applications, not getting better by anything. So these are very common symptoms of a skin problem that a patient will present. So what do we do in such a case? So I'll give you a simple hint. What you must do is take what the patient gives you. For example, take all the symptoms that the patient gives you, even if they are commonplace, even if they are general, because they are very, very important. They are very strong symptoms that the patient presents with. So take all of them. And there has to be something about the patient that is going to be peculiar, which you will have to pick up. And here comes the role of the discerning, the unprejudiced homeopath. So this is where the doctor, the homeopath will pick up one peculiar symptom. Now I'll give you an example. We have patients with tinea, as I said, coming with similar issues, like they have tinea corporis and tinea cruris. You have eruptions all over, sometimes around the groin, sometimes around the waist, and the itching is always worse by scratching. Now you have to take all these general symptoms. So we take general symptoms of anemia. So itching, eruptions desquamating, eruptions exfoliating, intense itching, worse by scratching. So these are common symptoms. You can take pityriasis as one of the common symptoms, and you derive a common totality. Once you derive a common totality, you know that you have about 15 or 20 drugs which are going to show up. The drugs that have, the remedies that have an affinity for the skin and mucous membrane, and with covering these kind of general symptoms will come up. So invariably, you're going to get rust tox, hepatitis, sulfur, you're going to get CPR, tellurium, basilinum, heparsult, Merxol. So these are the petroleum, these are the remedies, about 15 or 20 of them, which are always going to show up. Now what happens is, you have to take out the PQRS here. For example, we had this villager who walked into our clinic and with the same thing, with itching, eruption, nothing very PQRS, all the general symptoms. There was only one thing which was peculiar, and his head was all wrapped up. He was wearing a turban. This was the month of May. It was sweltering hot. Obviously, it was a rural OPD, so no air conditioner, even fan was not working very well. So he walked into a OPD with his head covered in a tight turban. So when we asked him that, this was something which all of us noticed that this is something very peculiar. So when I asked him, he said that when I uncover my head, I feel that there is some cold air which is touching my head and I don't like it. When I wrap my head in this turban, I feel much better. I feel the warmth is something that I like. And I said that, why do you like to wear a sweater or a coat? He said, no, I don't want to cover the rest of my body. It's only my head. So this immediately gave us the hint for heparsult. And this patient reported a lot of amelioration within the first prescription itself. Now, another patient with similar issues, a woman in her late 40s, and the typical washerwoman working in the fields, working at home, very irritable. She had an irritable look on her face. That clinched sepia for us. We had another patient with an eruption with a thin gluey kind of a discharge, and it was graphitis. A patient who said that itching makes wants me to scratch, and scratching makes it worse. Scratching makes the itching worse, and it was so strong because he kept repeating this again and again. खुजली से सर कम नहीं होता है, खुजली से और बढ़ता है, लेकिन खुजाने का मन करता है. That is the keynote for tellurium. So this is how we have arrived, and we found that invariably patients are better with this remedy, and very often patients, and we thought that this is probably a partial remedy, but a lot of times patients do not report any aggravation. They have sustained amelioration for months together. And of course, patients who do not get better, we always keep them aside, and then they are called for more detailed case taking later on. So this way what happens is that a majority of patients get treated, they feel better, and the ones who are not better are segregated for constitutional, more detailed case taking later. So this kind of an approach can very well work in community settings, in mass settings, in a country like India, in a lot of developing countries where you have, where there is so much of stress on primary health care. And this can actually make, pave the way for homeopathy being a part of primary health care. So this is my basic presentation, but I would like a lot of questions because this needs a lot of interaction. So Dr. John, if you'd like to ask me something, please do.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sujata. Am I audible?
Yes, you're very audible, John.
Okay.
And visible too.
Yes, good introduction. And as you are focused on the dermatology part, the first question is, have you made a sort of a protocol, or have you formed a sort of a record of all the cases you have treated and come to a specific groups of remedies which you can suggest the doctor homeopaths here, that these are the groups of remedies, whether it is 15, 20, 25, where has the maximum benefit? As you mentioned some names about few of the remedies like heparsult and sulfur and petroleum, and anything about mesothelium or any other newer remedies, sorinum.
Yes.
Can you go, please?
Yes, yes. Thanks, Dr. John, for your question. And yes, we've been working on this. And of course, dermatology is not the only area that we're working in. I just wanted to give you examples because they are more relatable. Now, we've been working at this for a long time. We are associated with the Vala Hospital in Devwan, which is a part of the rural outreach program. And we are also working with a team of Tata Cancer Research in the same place. And we have done several studies on this. And everywhere we have been using this method in many of cases because we are doing this in mass settings. For example, we were referred by the oncologist there to treat cases of resistant candidiasis in patients on cytotoxic therapy. And this is the study that we conducted, and we used the keynote method here also. And we presented this study at the latest Kochi conference, organized by the GHF on integrative oncology, where I won the first prize in the oral presentation. So this kind of approach has been proving very useful because for two reasons. One is that it is simple to follow, so you can make it into a standardized protocol. And two is that it reduces a lot of human error. Because here the interpretation of the doctor does not come in, it does not interfere with the prescription. All you're doing is taking what the patients are giving you. And you are just taking one differentiating rubric, which again is obvious in the way the patient presents himself. Now, regarding the study, Dr. John, you asked me that have you derived any remedies? And as I said, that what we have done is we have taken a general totality, whether it was tinea, whether it was allergic dermatitis, atopic eczemas. We have taken general rubrics that the patient presents with, all general symptoms that the patient presented with, and converted into rubrics. So we are getting a list of remedies. For example, in tinea, we found Russtox, sulfur, Meserium, Basilinum, Heparsal, Merck Sol, Graphitis sepia, Tellurium. I might be missing a few perhaps, but these are Crysterobinum. These are the specific remedies which have affinity to the skin and mucous membrane. And by taking the PQRS symptom and converting it into a differentiating rubric and applying it to the repertorization, immediately sifts the indicated remedy from the others. And that has proven very, very useful in this kind of practice.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sujata. One question keep coming up again and popping on the screen is, since the discussion with Dr. Devadiga was on miasm, let's focus on miasmatic aspect of skin diseases and what is the role of anti-miasmatic drugs in skin diseases.
We are, unfortunately, I will of course answer the question. We are actually deviating from our topic, which is the keynote application.
Yeah, but there could be some incurable cases.
Since you've asked me about it, and a lot of people want to know, what we have done is that we are using the anti-miasmatic remedy as, and why I was so fascinated by this aspect which Dr. Devadiga pointed out yesterday, because we have been using it very frequently in our practice, and that is using the anti-miasmatic remedy to help the indicated remedy to work better. Now, sometimes
Hello?
Hello, not been able to hear.
Yes, the video has been cut off, right?
Yes.
Just a moment, sir.
Is it with everyone?
No, sir. Probably some
Is it on?
internet issue at ma'am's place. Let me just check, sir.
Okay. Hello?
So just a moment. I'm just trying to.
You can take in some questions in the meantime.
Yeah, ma'am is in again.
How much time do we have, Dr. Nali?
We have 10 minutes more.
Yeah, starting the video.
Just a moment, sir.
How many of them are in so far total?
The total now there are 44 participants. But,
there are questions coming in from there?
Questions are coming in, but ma'am's audio is not.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
I can hear you. The video went off for some
time.
time.
Okay,
yes, ma'am.
You're audible. The video is not
Thank
clear.
you. Sorry for that little, I don't know what happened. But anyway, so the anti-miasmatic aspect, we're using the anti-miasmatic remedies by themselves if they are indicated. For example, Basilinum can come up as the indicated remedy in several cases, especially when there is a history of tuberculosis, either in the context or the patient has had a past history of tuberculosis. So that's where Basilinum is used. Thuja is used when the character of the eruption is very typical. We are using sulfur as the indicated remedy if the symptoms match. But we are also using them as intercurrent remedies sometimes to help the indicated remedy works better. For example, if the patient says that we have given him CPR as say the constitutional remedy or the indicated remedy at that time, and she's much better. And then there's a stalemate after 3 months when she says that now I don't think I'm getting any better. I'm जो कुछ था 60%, 70%, इसके आगे मुझे और ठीक नहीं लग रहा है. The itching still continues, and you take the totality and it still remains the same. So that's when you can, we have interrupted sometimes or with a remedy like medorinum or with sulfur, depending on how the constitution of the patient presents with. And we found that the anti-miasmatic remedy works, helps the indicated remedy work much better. So if you're given medorinum, next time CPR is going to continue to work better. Of course, it's not that we continue to give CPR throughout. You might just give a couple of doses and then stop and put the patient on SL. But depending, all that depends on how the patient presents with.
Yeah, let's come back to our topic of the day, the keynote. Now, coming to the keynote, what are the basis of keynote selection? Do you look for and how many symptoms?
Pardon?
What are the basis of keynote selection? How many symptoms do you look at what level?
Yeah. See, keynote method was also advocated by Hahnemann, and he has explained this in his theory of epidemic diseases, where he says that you cannot really deviate from homeopathic principles because there has to be something clear about even the common symptoms that the patient presents with. This was taken up by Boninghaus and later by Henry Guernsey, who said that keynote is like a fundamental note which takes you to the whole. So from the piece you go to the whole. And he said it's like how in a musical note, symptoms can be as many as 5 or 6 or 10 or 12. But generally the differentiating rubrics are only 1 or 2. And that's why we call them keynotes, because they are just a couple, 1 or 2 of the peculiar or the characteristic symptoms that we can delineate and apply as differentiating rubrics. That's why it's called the keynote. So it's not very different from constitutional prescribing, except that here you are going to have a limited number of remedies, and the remedies that you're going to get at the onset or at the outset are the ones which are very specific, which have have an affinity to that particular organ or to that particular mucous membrane, and will also come up as the indicated remedy for the group of symptoms that the patient presents with.
So a keynote symptom is mostly a physical particular, a physical general, or it is the mental, or a concomitant, or a body language? Where would
it can be anything. It can be anything, Dr. John, which is peculiar. It can be a peculiar thermal modality. For example, if you have a patient coming with intense itching on the eruption, and you just ask, how do you feel better? A patient feels better with cold water. Think of graphitis, patient thinks like warm applications, you think of arsenic. Patient doesn't want, wants absolutely hot water. Think of rus venereum. So these are the common remedies that are coming up, and you know that these are the remedies indicated for the skin eruption, but you can immediately delineate the indicated remedy at that time. So thermal modality, it could be a gesture, it could be a feeling, it could be a sensation, it could be a delusion. Delusions are rarely expressed that way, but most of the time it could be either a physical modality, a thermal modality, it could be a concomitant also. Along with that, as I said, the patient who came up with a wrapped head, or it could be something which is very, very strong, even if it's a general symptom, a very strong symptom, and that can also become a PQRS, it can become a characteristic.
Okay, the questions are coming about the posology, the potency selection, and the repetition of a remedy.
Yeah, so for me, I always follow this thumb rule is that the more subjective the symptoms, the closer you get to the mentals, and the higher you can reach the patient in terms of constitution, the less frequent should be your repetition and higher should be the potency. Now here, because it's we are working on partial totalities, probably on one-sided totalities, so we prefer to use low to moderate potency. So it could be 12, it could be 30 C, that's all, 12 to 30. And we prefer to give this application. I have used mostly in the rural setups, or in community camps or in health camps where you don't have much time, but you still want to treat the patient constitutionally. And so 30 C or 12 C, and generally we give 3 doses. The reason why is because we can repeat, because it being a partial totality, and 2 is that we also ensure the patient's compliance. A lot of patients may drop the medicine, and because they are rural people, they are illiterate, they may not take the first dose, forgetting to take it. So we ensure that at least 3 doses are given so that you know that the remedy has gone in. and this is followed by SL.
Okay, in a community setup, how long would your history taking last? Is it a very short history taking, or it's a long history like a normal case taking?
It's 3 minutes, Dr. John.
Okay, so for a new homeopath, how easy would this be? An upcoming? Is it
I
going
think
to be
this,
a risk that you can end up in wrong selection of a remedy? Chances of errors would be higher.
See here, in fact, for a new homeopath, this is a better setup because you don't really have to see the best part about homeopathy. And we, as homeopaths, we often think that the more we delve into the history, the more we are able to, make the patient talk, the more the symptoms you get, the closer you get to the remedy. But remember that elaborate history taking and long case histories may not help you to reach the correct drug if you're not an experienced homeopath. For a new homeopath, just taking what the patient is giving, whatever appears, whatever is visible, whatever the patient is telling you, take it down verbatim, convert it into rubrics. Even if they are general, they are not characteristics. And try to, the discerning homeopath must be taught to take up at least something peculiar about the patient. And you'll see that if you're observant enough, there is something that the patient is going to give away to you, which you can then apply. So this way the error part is definitely reduced. However, let me tell you that this is not complete constitutional prescribing but it also means that when you give the indicated remedy, you're giving relief to the patient, taking off the first veneer from his constitution and probably pave the way for further constitutional prescribing. And this we found is extremely scientific, very easy to follow, and can be converted into a standardized protocol.
Yes. In fact, Organon mentions about totality of symptoms more significant by Dr. Hahnemann. Rather than the word constitution has hardly been used in the Organon.
Yes. Totality of symptoms. Absolutely.
Yes.
So here also we're using totality of symptoms.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, one important question is about repertory, the use of repertory in this sort of setup.
In fact, your repertory is a very important tool. I always believe that materia medica is the soul of prescribing, and repertory is a tool because the repertory reduces the risk of human error. It makes accuracy more possible because even if you know your materia medica well, you might get confused between the first 3 or 4 remedies. If you know your materia medica well, then the first 10 remedies must pop up all the time. But the repertory will help you to zero down on the one which is the most indicated at that time. So repertory is definitely on. So we are using the repertory extensively.
Which repertory do you advise for a new homeopath or a recently started? The easiest repertory to operate on?
I would say that for materia, you must know your materia medica very well. You cannot do the repertory before the materia,
you can
because
say,
if you do that, then pardon?
Any books, references for materia medica in practice? And
yeah, materia medica, read all the classical books, all the ones, right, starting from, of course, Hahnemann's Materia Medica Pura. We studied that during college. After that, we didn't bother to open it much. And then, of course, Clark's is there. And clinical repertories like Borek and Murphy, Phatak, these are also there. And Kent, of course, yes. I would also like to read a lot of drug pictures, So for that, I read Shankaran very often, Margaret Tyler, Catherine Coulter. So these are some of the remedies for some of the books which you can refer. And repertories, of course, most of the softwares have all the repertories. We often refer to the complete repertory for repertorization to arrive at the correct remedy.
Okay. There are earlier repertories which to report the text of Phatak's repertory. Any experience about Phatak repertory?
Phatak repertory is very good. Of course, it has its own limitations, and we generally like to not stick to one repertory. So now there are 3-4 studies we have conducted, and I would be very happy to share the work that we have been doing with those who are interested. One is on tinea, the other one is on, as I said, resistant oral candidiasis, on PCOS, on bronchial asthma. We have done one on chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy. And this is the protocol that we have followed everywhere, as that we have taken general symptoms of the presentation, and most of them are related to the condition, to the pathology. So we've taken all those. See, even if they are general, you must realize that they are strong symptoms. For example, a patient of PCOS coming with irregular periods, even if it's a common symptom, is a strong symptom. PCOS patient who comes with regular periods becomes characteristic. Okay. a patient who's putting on weight but has regular periods, that's when the homeopath's antennae should go up. So you should always try to sift the uncommon from the common. And this is where you can apply the theory of individualization even with very little data in your hand. And this is where the repertory will come to your aid. And we found that this actually reduces the error to a large extent. Prescriptions will start matching. If everybody uses a standardized protocol, prescription will start matching. There'll be more cross-references amongst homeopaths, and we'll be able to discuss things on the same page. Unfortunately, what is happening is that with full respect to all the senior homeopaths and the ones who are doing very well, if you cannot replicate what you are doing in general terms, if your students, if your colleagues cannot do what you have been doing in a similar manner, I think then the problem becomes, it no longer is a science. Then you rely on homeopathy being only an art. I should say that homeopathy is 80% science and 20% art. And the science should be a standardized protocol. It must have repeat value. It must be able to be replicated over time in the same conditions. So that tomorrow when the Ayushman, the ministry comes up with the thing that, okay, for all fungal skin infections, or say for all allergies or atopic eczemas, homeopathy should be a part of the primary treatment protocol. That is how it should be in several conditions. And this is what we have been stressing on, we've been working on, trying to reach homeopathy to the grassroots. It's time that it came out of the closets and came out on the streets, where it becomes easily applicable and we can refer patients easily to other homeopaths, and we don't keep our prescriptions close to our chests. So this is our dream actually.
That's what I've been emphasizing with every homeopath. There has to be transparency, and there's a networking right from junior to senior.
Absolutely.
Am I audible? Yeah. So when you have trouble with your patients, feel free to refer to a senior homeopath and see that the patient is eventually cured through homeopathy. Don't have an insecurity of losing your patients. An MBBS always refers an MD or a DM consultant, not with the fear that he'll lose his patients. There has to be transparency and cross.
I think it's less, Dr. John, it's less to do with fear of losing the patients. It's more to do with our lack of our confidence. Because we have so much, we're so afraid that if our prescription is revealed, what will the other homeopath think? They will think, oh, she's using such common remedies, what's the big deal? Or somebody using only, so, you know, we like to talk about exotic stuff. We try to like talk about the miracles that we are producing in our clinic. Rather, it's the day-to-day things, the commonplace things. Why is it that we should treat what allopaths cannot treat? Why is it that we should not treat what allopathy can treat, but we can treat better, more economically and more safely? That should be the crux of homeopathic prescription.
Very true. I think it's time for the questions to open now. There are a lot of questions coming in. Dr. Runali.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
You can take one question at a time.
Yes. So we have just about 1 minute, 45 seconds left. So I'll just take one very interesting question.
Yeah.
So one doctor has asked that in the keynote method of practice, wouldn't there be a limitation in the number of remedies coming up during repertorization?
Oh, that's a very good question, Dr. Runali, and definitely there'll be a limitation, definitely. And as I said at the beginning of my session, is that constitutional or the totality of symptoms is the key, is the crux of homeopathic prescription. Having said that, the keynote application is not about deviating from fundamental homeopathic principles. It is not isopathy. It is homeopathy with the individualistic approach. It's just that we have very little matter to work on, very little PQRS to work on. Yet we are able to zero down on the remedy which is going to help the patient at that time. And I think that if that could also be called as classical prescribing in a concise way or in a small package, as I would say. But definitely it will pave the way for further prescribing later on. So I wouldn't say that that's the end or the be all, but definitely in such a setting, the keynote application is working very well.
Next question.
Sir, actually, we have less than 30 seconds to go for the session to wrap up.
It will continue, don't worry. They will give you a message. You can take the questions.
Okay. So, sir, so ma'am, another question we are having is that how often do you encounter aggravations with this keynote method, and how do you deal with it?
The aggravations that come up with the keynote method are not any different from the aggravations that you would get from what would you say, the constitution. I'm using the word constitutional prescribing.